Good afternoon. After the heavy lunch, hopefully you're still energetic and active and not too tired, because we have a very esteemed and interesting panel in front of us. We will talk about pipeline power, trends in hotel deals and tourism development. And we have four panelists, which I will now call onto the stage. First one, Lee Lin. Welcome, Lee Lin, with me. Second one on the stage is Evan Burns. Third, Pa Rio. Please come up the stage. And last but not least, Pa Bogank. Bogank. Yeah, difficult name though. So everyone is sitting in the right spot. That's good. Before we start the panel, I would love to hear 1, 2, maximum 3 sentences from each of you, who you are, what you're doing, so everyone knows. Maybe we can start at the end. Pa Bogang.
Thanks, Toby. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It's been great pleasure to meet you guys. It's my first time to be on the stage, to be honest, and I'm excited to meet you guys, and I'm very happy to meet all of you, and I'm expecting to have a connection with you after the session. Thanks, Toby. I'm representing Magnum State. We talk later. Thanks.
Thank you. Pa Rio?
Yes, good afternoon. Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Rio. I work for Accor, and thank you for having me here today, HIC organizer. Yeah, hopefully we have a good session. I have been working for Accor for 13 years now, and it's a very exciting time for Indonesian hotel.
Thank you. Evan?
All right, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Evan Burns. I'm from SONO Hotels and Resorts. You may not have heard of the brand yet, but we were previously Cross Hotels and Resorts, based in Indonesia, and we've recently gone through an acquisition, so very excited to be here. I'm 15 years in Indonesia and many familiar faces, and I'm very interested to share and join this panel. And also, many panelists have not spoken about the people with the blue lanyards, and anyone that's interested in having their hotels managed, we can talk afterwards.
Thank you. Lee?
That was about 5 sentences too much. I'm just kidding. So I'm Leland. Not my first time on the stage. I'm with Nobu Hotels. I look after Nobu Hotels and Hospitality Group for Asia Pacific.
I was just being asked, do we want to take the picture now or after? I said after, yeah? Yeah, okay, good. Okay, before we start the panel with questions and discussions, I want to give you 4 theories I developed in regards to this topic, and maybe if you like them or not like them, maybe you can jump onto them during your part. The first one is capital is no longer patient. So capital is still in the market, but it's far more disciplined. It's investors are not underwriting optimism anymore. They are underwriting resilience. Second one I thought of is land is more expensive and less forgiving. So in Bali, in other upcoming regions, Phuket or cities like Singapore and other places, land prices have going up. Zoning is tightening, and also the infrastructure is under visible strain. Experience is now part of the underwriting. So we have some branding experts amongst us. I'm pretty sure everyone is talking about lifestyle, F&B concepts, wellness, and that kind of stuff. But it's not the branding language anymore. The experience is being built into investors' feasibility studies, into their KPIs and what have you. And last but not least, risk has become more complex. So oversupply, environmental pressures, regulatory adjustments, infrastructure bottlenecks, and also the demand in Asia seems sometimes up, sometimes down, and you never know when that is happening. maybe that is something I wanted to throw at you before we start, and maybe you can go on to it. I would love to start with Lee with the first question. And maybe you can give it a little bit of a macro kind of perspective. So across Asia Pacific, how are investors balancing traditional metrics like RevPAR, average daily room rates, etc., with total yield and brand-driven value creations?
Yeah, I would say that's a great question, but I would say at the end of the day, it really all depends, right? Depends on the deal, the nature of the deal, who you're working with. Obviously, the nature of that source of funds is very, very different, right? From case to case. For us, we usually work with high net worth individuals, families who understand where we come from. So obviously, yeah, they're not high net worth or big family offices for no reason. They care about their financial matrix. But for them, it's more of a long-term play versus, let's say, a short-term, where you're in a trading position with some funds. So it's a very different ballgame, even comparing, different kinds of developers. That makes sense.
Yes. And what do you think of non-room related revenue drivers? Is that something from your perspective, like important stuff, or is that?
That's everything we talk about. That's everything we talk about, which is F&B. Obviously, is where Nobu comes from. That's our DNA. So on average in our hotels, one seat at our restaurant makes as much revenue as one room, which never happens in hotels. And if it does, you're probably not making the same kind of revenue, same kind of profit off of that. So that's really rare. And if you think about it, F&B spaces usually take up a big part of the hotel, especially a lot of your investment. So to be able to do that, that's what makes it so different and special in the way that when we talk to these owners, and an average owner of Nobu usually owns about 2 to 3 properties with us. The highest one owns like 6, ongoing 7. It's because they understand our business model and the way that we're able to bring in traffic, from the restaurant. And with that, you have a very different kind of income. With that, the rooms. So yeah.
Do you see that across Asia Pacific, or is it something very localized?
Obviously, for us, the location is very important. Who we work with is very important. It has to be in a location where our F&B is going to thrive, right? And obviously, in a place where it has potential for the F&B to thrive, and that will be the only reason why we go into that particular location. But I do see that across Asia Pacific, where people love food, they care about experiences, they care about the social scene, which is what Nobu is all about. Want to go into Nobu to be seen and to see people who want to be seen. So that's a whole game basically, where everyone lives online nowadays. It's all Instagram. So we're the original viral restaurant, right, from New York City. So we were there before internet. So with that, we're in a very lucky position, in the right position to grow.
Thank you.
Thanks, Toby.
And that brings me also to Rio, which maybe you can tell us a little bit about your how you see that in your pipeline developments. Is that something what Lee just mentioned you consider in Accor, or nothing to do?
No, definitely. It's. I think the world is changing. The markets are changing. The customers are changing. So we have to change with that, right? So I mean, for example, in Accor, we have 141 hotels right now in Indonesia with about 27,000 rooms, and we have to look forward. And one of the things that we did was we have now a line of like lifestyle brands under the Ennismore. I don't know if you have heard Ennismore, but yeah, we have about maybe about 18 brands, I think, under the lifestyle. One of which is actually already in Indonesia, in Jakarta, 25 hour, and we discussed this a little bit earlier. So yeah, definitely. I mean, F&B, as you said, Lee, F&B is definitely getting more and more important. I mean, so much so that people are beefing up on F&B. Used to be left behind a little bit in the hotel industry about 10, 15 years ago. It's definitely coming back. All you have to do is, if you live in Jakarta, you go out, over the weekends, and you can see all of these F&B outlet popping out everywhere. It's just, this is a big comeback of the F&B. I think the hotel industry is being affected with that. Yeah, definitely there is a changing in the market. I mean, the Gen Z and the millennial, all these people are making the demands changing.
If I may follow up on this thought, Mario. So, if we talk about asset types, your investors or investors in general, prioritizing today, do you think it's more towards the luxury resort brand? Is it more that lifestyle? Is it more branded residences, or is it a hybrid model? Or where do you see the trend going and the wishes to invest?
Okay, I think it was touched a little bit by the previous panel that luxury, I think, is probably limited to certain areas in Indonesia, like Bali. I think that's where, because you need to command that high rates, otherwise it doesn't work. The formula, I think Ivan from Marriott mentioned that as well. But the sweet spot in Indonesia, definitely, which is reflecting the market of Indonesia, is definitely in the mid-scale and upper mid-scale. Our out of 141 hotels, we have about 60%, which is in the Mercure and Novotel level. That's basically the sweet spot. I mean, if you look at Jakarta and Bali and the big markets, of course you have, like, the premium brands there. But once you get into the secondary, tertiary cities, definitely, you start talking about Mercure. We just opened maybe about half a dozen Mercure in the past 1 or 2 years. So that's the sweet spot. However, I can tell you that we have been seeing a little bit more activity in the premium level. The 5-star, definitely people are starting to see 5-star as value. So I'm signing, a Movenpick, like Grand Mercure, that 5-star level, especially the entry level and the mid level. I mean, we have 4 brands, which is the top one is Pullman, and then we have Swissôtel, Movenpick, and Grand Mercure. With that on in that scale.
Okay, thank you. Maybe a question for Lee, just so I get it correctly. I mean, Nobu is coming definitely from the higher end of the range. If you're stepping out of your with your Nobu head, do you think that is the direction investors are taking, as Mario said, more that sweet spot somewhere in between, or you think the high standard is the future for most of the investors?
Well, again, I think, like, Sir Real here said, it's really dependent on case by case, right? At the end of the day, matching the right operator or right brand to the developer is very, very important, right? So it depends on, really, at the end of the day, depends on what you're developing. You need to find the right operator, for that right brand for that segment. I think every segment continued to grow, but obviously in locations like Bali, and major metropolitan cities. Well, throughout Asia Pacific, that's what I'm trying to say. Luxury is definitely a growing segment because we're naturally in a region that has lower cost, compared to say the West. But that's that. But when it comes to value proposition, that's also something that I think investors should look out for. Which very expensive, or let's say luxury brands, doesn't always necessarily mean it costs you an arm and a leg to build, right? So look at Six Senses, for example, right? The very first Six Senses was built on bamboos and very rustic materials, and yet they command one of the highest rates in southern Thailand. So I'd say at the end of the day, it's about choosing smart and choosing right.
Yeah, and if I may, personal comment on that, luxury maybe before meant gold and I don't know, chandeliers and 150 square meter rooms. But I feel that the experience and the service and what you're taking home is getting more and more important.
Absolutely.
So yeah, which brings me also to the far end of this seating. Yeah, Bogank, maybe from your experience as a Bali-based operator, as a Balinese. Yeah, Are you Balinese or?
I'm not, but I stay in Bali.
But he's a Bali-based, long-term resident of Bali. Do you think that what I've mentioned earlier, that the land prices, the zoning, the infrastructure problems Bali is facing, change that development scale and the deal structures you're seeing with Magnum or in general?
Thanks, Toby. Interesting question about land price. For the last 2-3 years, I would say the land price in Bali is increasing around 10% significantly. Post-COVID, 2021, 2023, right up to until right now, it's increasing almost 10%. Especially if you're looking at on the coastal strips around Canggu, Prerenan, go to Seseh, Mengwi, goes up straight, never go down until now. So it is pushing a development company to buy smaller parcel instead of buy the huge one, or the development company should switching into high value positioning instead of just build a large ground. That's about the land pricing. And the most interesting what I see since 2023, the RTRW, how do you call that in English? Rencana Tata Ruang Wilayah Daerah. New spatial zoning has been implemented. So the government of Bali really enforcing that you cannot build in a green zone. So it reduced the potential development company into a greenfield area. So I think some development company now choosing the right spot to build this. If you do and build into this kind of zone, suddenly they will stop it, definitely. And I think it's been on the news for the last 2 years. And it's true. And also the most interesting also about the development in Bali because of the infrastructure. Toby, if I would share the story. The planning of the airport expansion unclear until now and is delaying the project, especially about the past event last year. Also, the infrastructure like water treatment system, all this kind of flood things happening in Bali. So it creates a development company to think twice to develop high project in Bali. Yeah.
Good last sentence, because I wanted to ask Rio about this. So you as one of the bigger developers with Accor, are you adjusting to those land constraints, your deal structures? Is that something which gives you sleepless nights or?
Definitely, definitely. No, because the other side of that is we already have quite a number of hotels in Bali already. I think we're closing into about 30. So the obviously when you have that kind of a volume in a market, even though a market as vibrant as Bali, we need to be careful. And we do. I mean, it's definitely our development in Bali is definitely slowing down in that sense compared to like 5 years ago. But still, a lot of opportunity still presents itself, and so we have to consider all of them. Yes, but we continue to ask, and we perhaps ask more of these questions to make sure that we're not getting into a development where the permits are not there, the permits are not properly done, and especially when we open, we're an international hotel company, so when we open a hotel, everything needs to be there, all the insurances, all the permits, etc. Yeah.
Thank you. Well, one last question before we go on to Evan. So you were talking about smaller footprints and not the big plots. So do you think that mixed use against smaller footprints is something, is that contradictory, or is there something you see for the future that mixed use properties are becoming more and more popular?
I think mixed use property with a smaller footprint is going to be the new trend for the next few decades in Bali. Especially if you can combine with the F&B wellness lifestyle. So it's going to be the new choices for the development company in the future. And it's going to be the new opportunity also for the hotel operator, for the business and investment to do this kind of things. Yeah. The small footprint might happen in the highland pricing like Canggu, Brawa, Preranan, even in Uluwatu at this moment, right? Even though in Uluwatu there are many big projects because of the potential investment down there is pretty good, but on the cliff side, it's still becoming the prominent investment in the future. But again, the small footprint with the mixed use property concept is going to be one of the new trends in the future. Toby.
You just mentioned hotel operators, and we happen to have one here on the stage, hands-on. So, Evan, what do you think are the biggest risks for developers and operators in nowadays landscape with the oversupply, with up and downs in demand, with infrastructure bottlenecks that you mentioned earlier? So, what are you facing with your team?
Well, it looks like I've got 19 minutes to answer these questions, but it
Actually, 9 yours.
and it's also being recorded, so I have to be very careful what I say here. But we are building we're building 5 hotel greenfields at the moment in Bali alone, right? And then we have 3 building in Batam. But we'll focus on Bali. There is a risk of oversupply, but as you heard from the sessions today, that the appetite for investment is still in Bali, and the return is still in Bali. All the leads that come over our desk is projects in Bali. So the oversupply, we're building hotels faster than the infrastructure can keep up, right? That's the reality. If you look at the roads and the systems, and a topic that I'll talk about the environment at the moment is we are running a risk that we're building too close, so it becomes too fast, but it not becomes that it's hotel versus hotel anymore. It's about people potentially looking for another destination, right? Because we are reliant on the demand basically in Bali of the airlift, right? So if the airlift is not there, it doesn't matter what you invest in the property, we need to get that right? We need to be actively pushing tourism abroad, yeah? Give an example of Thailand, they're pushing this, the tourism very, very well. We need to do this more. Coming to the environment, we would have seen the last couple of days that all over the media about the beaches in Bali, right? As someone that is part of this problem, well, we need to own this. We are part of this problem. There's a lot more that we can do together. And if we don't fix these things now, we can keep building, but the guests won't come because we're relying so much on this.
And I mean, those are reflected thoughts from, a hands-on operator who knows the realities on the ground. Is that something you feel in discussions with your investors, with your owners, that those reflected thoughts that they are aware of it, or not really?
It's a combination of.
Sorry, does that affect, I want to put my money down or not because we are environmental friendly or whatever?
Look, it's part of the, when you do greenfield, you do a lot of technical service, and it's this collaborative approach, what we're doing, right? But the decisions you're making now is for decisions that are going on 10 years later, right? We're trying to make decisions what we think is the right thing to do. But the reality is we need to build in the hotels that have the flexibility to adapt, right? You can't have dealers in your ballroom anymore, because if you don't have any MICE business, what do you convert it to, right? It becomes a centre for staff training, right? The process of having flexible spaces, restaurants that are outsourced, right? Make them part of the problem, make them part of the solution, right? Lifestyle is going to change a lot. I know I'm digressing a little bit from the question, but the lifestyle product in hotels is going to change so much. It's going to be really good restaurants in hotels. It's going to be really good wellness spaces. The old days of having a Chinese restaurant in a hotel and all-day dining and lobby bar, that's going to change, because the next generation, what do they call them? Generation Alpha. They're not drinking like some of us used to, right? They're not having that cocktail. They're not having all these things in the hotel. They want wellness. they want Botox clinics in the hotel. We're going to see a different type of hotel than what we're seeing now, and that's my thought on it. So, be part of the solution, but be able to have products that you can change over time.
Agreed. And that's perfect round to go to my last question, which is for all of you before. I would love to invite the audience, every one of you, to scan that barcode and QR code and give us some questions. Maybe we can start with Lee. So looking ahead, as you just did a little bit, which hospitality models across Indonesia, Asia, maybe even if you want to go around the world, are best positioned to attract the capital, to sustain long-term performances, and what do you see as the future model?
Well, so, the word branded residences has been brought up quite a bit, and for us is extremely evident. About 80% of our pipeline has branded residences, and that's something, money's getting tighter, banks are getting more stringent, geopolitics, et cetera, et cetera. All that's come to effect where you make this, actually one very wonderful product. Really not because of necessity, but because it's a product that's wasn't tapped into before or rarely, but now it's the next big thing. So for us, 80% of our projects have branded residences. So with that as mixed use and something where you're truly building a community, right? And that's what everyone was saying about all these trends and adapting to trends. I feel like when you build a community that starts to build that first step of sustainability, financial sustainability for the project. Obviously, it's sustainable to begin with because you can cash back from development, and you're adding that kind of cachet to the project where people are actually enjoying that as a collection in their lives and actually using it. So it's basically a win-win-win situation. It's a win for the buyer, win for the developer, and win for the brand, right? So that's something that I see happening a lot going forward. I forgot your question, but.
I think that's exactly it. So what do you see as the future model, right, to invest capital
There you go.
for the long term?
Yeah, I think branded residences is really something that we're going to focus on moving forward for our developers. Yeah, and it's a very largely untapped market. You look at Bali, you have a lot of villas, design villas that people are renting here and there, but services, the standards are here and there, and nothing in between. So that's something that we feel is a huge opportunity for Bali.
We just want to go down the line.
I agree with brand presence. We're also going into a white label branded property in Bali at the moment. But just to kind of follow on a little bit, I think what the investment model is changing. What we're seeing in Bali specifically is moving towards fractional ownership, right? So it's also a smart way to build a hotel. You get someone else to pay for it basically, and then build it. So we're seeing a lot of that. I think as an operator, we need to be really careful that we're not over-promising on what we can deliver. So when you have projects that are doing fractional ownership or condo model, whatever it might be, and they come up and say, we're going to do a 15% guaranteed return on investment. As an operator, you need to be confident enough to say, no, this is what we can deliver and this is what we do, right? So we forget that our job is to look after the hotel, the owner's asset, build that relationship, because that's where I think more investment will come, is when you have very good relationship with your owners, you are looking after their properties and the staff, and you build from there. I think that sometimes as you grow or you try to grow too big, you forget why we're in the business for the first place, as an operator point of view.
Yes, actually, branded residence, sale and leaseback will continue to be something that people will look at as funding becomes more challenging. But there's one more thing that I would like to mention here. Actually, the recycling of hotels. I caught up with some friends, Balinese friend, when I was in Bali the last time, because there's a lot of hotels out there that are actually dilapidated, and it's basically not doing anything, and it's becoming a sore sort of is not a good sight to see. So I think converting what do you call it, reusing the existing hotels, I think that should be, I mean, if you're an investor, I would really suggest that you look at some of these opportunity, because I think it's an opportunity that no one, actually very few people are actually looking at. And I think also the government can do its part by actually giving incentive. And we're talking about financing, we're talking about so making it much more attractive to look at these I mean, if you go to Bali, you don't know how many of these hotels you see. And I keep saying, I go to Bali quite often, and I ride around, and I see that one, this one. So if the government and the private sector can sort of get together and say, let's try to do something about these, right? And we, as the operator, we can also pitch in and make sure that we give them a good brands and things like that. I think this is for a mature market like Bali. Maybe the more mature markets in Indonesia could be something that people should look at.
Thank you. Bogank?
About the finance and things, investment in Bali, the property. My opinion personally, I would say the luxurious brand and ultra luxuries is going to be the one of the trend in the future. The asset is going to strike the best between cost and revenue anyway, and still is going to attract from financing side if the owner want to exit. So I think the luxurious brand is going to be the winner on that. The second is going to be the service apartment. I think in Bali there are many service apartment already now. So because you can capture the long stay guests while you minimize the cost, and it's also another trend in Bali. And glamping, all this kind of thing also is going to be another trend for investment side. And we are expecting very potential tourisms in the future, Toby. Yeah, that's what I would say.
Thank you.
Mm.
Thank you. We have 8 minutes left, and some questions already came in. This monitor is dead. Um, so maybe that's a question. The first one, maybe for Pariu and Bogank. Any collaborative movement to government policy from the investors and/or operators to improve Bali's infrastructure to accommodate growing tourism? What's your thought? Maybe Bogank.
I'm telling you a new story. This is what happened to my newest company. Yeah.
But 1 minute limit.
Just 1 minute. To be honest, that's 1 minute. 1 minute. Yeah. Our company just exists in 2021, and we just sign up the registration of this all this kind of permit, AMDAL, PBG, all that. It takes years until now. It's not even finished. Because this is the thing that we need to consider in the future. And normally 2021, everybody just doing nekat, just do whatever it takes, yeah? Just build, and suddenly we have to face this, face that, and we do jump in, out, rock and roll to finish this. Yeah. So I think this is that we need to address to government regarding how fast that we are going to take the license permit. To speed up the this kind of license, so the project will start fast and it's going to attract the growing tourism.
If I may also, from my experience, and hopefully I'm proven wrong, but I don't know any movement or any collaborative who is working at the moment together, private sector or government, to solve this issue. So
It is.
sorry.
Yeah, it is. There is no.
Yeah,
I don't say
so
there is any
maybe this is
collaborative
something,
movement. Yeah.
we should think of and maybe initiate. Yeah. Because as we said, as everyone said, it's a huge problem, these infrastructure, growing tourism, and it just contradicted.
I think it's really interesting because when you see the questions, I was just watching the questions. It's all about Bali. We're all fixated with Bali. But anyway, yes, I think uh, we need to involve younger people. I think the younger. I've met with a lot of younger people in Bali, the younger Balinese people and people who live in Bali. I think there's one here, Adi. Where are you, Adi? But I think you need their input because they have really good ideas. But sometimes their ideas are for some reason are not heard because I suppose because they are younger and I believe me, once these younger generation come up, and I think they will find solutions. I'm convinced with that.
Thank you, Mario. Maybe moving on to the next question. That's something maybe for Lee or also Evan. Bali has what? Sorry. What do you think about investing in expensive design when trends change very fast and the design may no longer be relevant before the investment is paid back?
If I may, well, it happens so I'm a designer by training. I think it's not about how expensive the design is. It's about designing right, for the product, for that segment, for that particular investment, right. But I think the word that we want to use here is timelessness, right? If you're designing, if you're investing in expensive things that are timeless, one of our most expensive hotels, doing $4,000 a night in Malibu, or Nobu Malibu, owned by Larry Ellison. He can spend, but he spent it in a really smart way, in a very reasonable way, so that it's timeless. He probably doesn't have to renovate for the next 20 years because it's gonna be timeless. Look at all those GHM hotels, the Amans. It's built on timelessness, and because of that, you're actually saving so much more in the long run. So I think the word is not about investing in expensive design, but investing in the right design as well as timelessness.
Yeah. Thank you, Lee. Sorry, Mario, another Bali question.
This is Mario.
Just no, that's all right. And then we have one for you, the last one. Bali has welcomed capital, yet pushback is rising as culture is affected. Where should investors draw the line between returns and cultural acceptance? Maybe, Evan? I mean, we had a few cases in
So
Bali.
I'm going to pull away to answer this question, but I think uh, I don't think it's a problem at the moment, right? There's regulatory things that you need to go through. If you're building in the areas that you're not allowed to build in, is going to be a problem, right? If you're doing things the right way, then you're doing things the right way. You will always have the culture. That is why people visit Bali, right? The culture is there. You go to check in some of our hotels, you go through rituals, right? We're focusing on this. I think the culture will be why we go there. There is a lot more we can do, right? I don't think it's losing its culture. I think there's development that is sometimes not being done as it should be, right? And that's probably a topic for another day, right? But I think we can continue this if you do things properly. And Bali is a very big island. It's all focused around the south, right? You've got North Bali, right? This is a lot, and it says times wrapped up.
Yeah,
but North Bali is big. There's a lot more we can do. There's islands. There's Nusa Penida, right? There's many places that you can go where you still have this culture.
Thank you. How do you one last sentence?
No, just quickly. I think the game changer will be the. I know it's very controversial, but I think the airport in the North Bali, because as you just said, it's too concentrated in the south. I think that will change quite a lot of stuff. I know it's controversial, but you know,
I'm looking forward to an off-panel discussion because I think we all experience quite a lot of those things in the industry. Gentlemen, thank you very much. I really enjoyed this. Thank you for your participation. And Jeffrey, we are ready for a photo. Yes. Yeah. Thank you very much.